If you want to check out the full build of this section of the video that you can see in the recap here, go check out the previous video. So, aside from painting the inside of the ship black for some reason that's beyond me, what you'll see in this video is basically me discovering a way to extend the front of the ship using cracker boxes that somehow just fit almost exactly inside each other, and also adding lights to the ship, and then really just getting it back to the state it was in at the end of the last video before I decided to cut the front off. So yeah, here you can see me making a slight adjustment to the cracker box, just gluing a couple of pieces of corrugated card on there to fill it out slightly, just so that it's a more snug fit. I had looked online to see if I could find something similar to this. I was thinking about like presentation wine boxes, but card ones, to see if there's any cheap ones out there, but I couldn't find anything at all. But I was looking for something that was fairly substantial, something that I didn't have to make, that could have been quite flimsy, and then these things were just on the side, and I just thought, I wonder if they fit inside each other. Different makes, obviously, and they did, so I kind of ran with that. Here I'm creating a method of making this part stronger, so I'm kind of making almost like, I suppose, the infill that you get in corrugated card that makes it have that strength when pressed down upon. So you can see there it's all kind of concertinaed inside the box. It's actually quite strong from that direction. Of double-sided sticky tape going on here just to fold the edges in. You'll see later on that I make a decision to fasten everything together with a kind of mechanical fixings, so basically everything's screwed together, because if I do find a better method for this telescopic section, then I'm going to use it. So here I'm fitting it. I'd found these long screws because I wasn't sure just how much material I was going to have to fix through to get it into that, because there's still quite a lot of detailed area on top there. But when I drilled the hole, you can see here, I tested with the screw. It turned out that I didn't need such long pieces of hardware in the end. Obviously all of this whole thing is not the way I would have done it if I'd have planned this from the beginning, and that's the real issue here, is that I'd thought about putting lights in and then just didn't plan for it at the beginning. So basically you end up with a lot of faff. Here's the smaller screws that I end up going with, or nuts and bolts to be fair. So, top tip, basically plan at the beginning if you're going to do anything that's quite technical, like putting lights in and other things, and don't do it after the fact, because there's loads of stuff that I would have done differently on this. There you can see the telescoping working quite nicely. This is for the screw, that the nut and bolt section that's going to come through from the top in the middle of the upper part of the ship. There's a lot of misuse of my multi-tool in this video. Yeah, to reach inside there, my hand doesn't fit inside it, so that was also a faff. So basically, to get that in, I had to use a pair of pliers to get that through. And you'll see this next bit is even more of a faff. So I can see there using the torch to see where the hole is, but there's no way I'm going to be able to guide that in there. So what I do is I take a piece of cotton and a needle and fasten the cotton around the tip of the nut and thread it through this way. All just improvised because the whole thing is so awkward, being the shape it is, and again, not having planned for it. I'd have cut more away from the body of the ship to give me more access if I'd have known this was going to be such a faff. So that's the first screw in, and then here I'm just basically making holes for the other two support bolts. You can see, and fiddly little bolts, they go on. And they're just touch tight at this point in time because I know for a fact that this is really just a test to see if it works, and I'm going to have to take that out again at some point. You can see I've used some silver gaffer tape there just to hold the ends in and give them a bit more strength. Still, it's just a little bit looser, and also to stop the internal box snagging on the bolts that are on the roof of that inner box, then another piece of card. All works. Right, so now it's about adding the front back on. I got a load of double-sided sticky tape just as a test to see if, well, how it would look. So I just kind of guide that on and hope the stickiness of it will support it, and takes another go. There you go. So that looks like it's going to work. It worked, but there was another problem, namely this bit. It was stopping the telescoping front coming out, so that little radar section is going to have to come off for the time being. So that's another bit that I'm going to have to deal with later on. I'd fixed the front panel to the telescoping part with super glue as well as the double-sided sticky tape, and then also strengthened the joins between the plastic and the cardboard with a couple of extra braces inside, cardboard braces. And now it was a case of getting the additional piece that was on the front originally with all of the radar antennae. This was supposed to be this kind of exploratory working ship, and so I wanted the whole front of it to have like dozens of aerials and radar, LiDAR scopes, and sort of like anything that could basically understand what, you know, maybe for mining asteroids and sort of like checking the kind of resources that were available to them on small planetoids and that sort of thing. So I've built this front bit that you can see here, and I used some of those long screws there basically just as guides to hold it in place, but it needed something else, and unfortunately I've got a load of these magnets, so cut out a little piece there, added a magnet on the back, and then the guides basically do very little apart from just guide it in, and there's a very satisfying I should say sound when the magnets join together really nicely like that. So that's almost looking like it was before I started to cut it up, but then also I've got this ability to maybe add a little more detail in here, maybe change the look of it, change the shape of it, and maybe even take all of those aerials off the front and add a different front altogether on it, which I'm also thinking about. So now it's really about the lights, and you can see I've added one in there. They're not great. I'm going to try and disguise a few of them, but essentially this is a case of me just drilling lots and lots of holes around it and getting all those wires in. And the other thing I wanted to do was obviously put a light in for the central engine at the back, and that's why I have to take the box out again, because there's no way for me to get my hand underneath it all and do that. So out comes that again. This is the beginning of a lot of holes being drilled. Again, misusing some sort of sanding tool, pointed sanding tool, but it's really good for just drilling quickly through the plastic. I think obviously I'm going to have to look into some other method of adding small lights, using these kind of, I suppose they're Christmas lights, or sort of like just lights, craft lights for sort of like dropping into glass bottles and jars. It's not the best science fiction looking lighting that you could have, but the whole thing's really an experiment, I guess. Here you can see me making the engine's lights, and it's incredibly bright on camera, but I've used these little blue, as you might have seen in the last video, these little bits of blue plastic lid from tiny little plastic tubs, and just basically glued them into place over the top of these torches. Torches are relatively cheap, about £1 from craft stores and other places. I think I picked them up at Boys. So that's it, and you can see that I had to reach right inside and turn the engine light on. It's got this really nice blue light, but on camera it gives off these real cool sort of like flashes. But yeah, when the other box is inside, I ain't going to be able to turn that on and off. So that's also another problem that I now have to kind of retro solve. There's no way I can get my hand in to do that. So what I do is I fasten a piece of strap that I found. I cut off, I think, an old camera thing. Added a little bulky bit of foam to the button at the back, and then when that's there I can tuck it inside the door. If I just pull that, yeah, and it just clicks on and off. How long and how many times I'm going to be able to do that before it breaks, who knows. So now it's onto the main lights, and this just became a faff, and it's not particularly elegant There's a lot of wires on the surface of the model by the end of this, but the lights are there, and I guess I'm going to have to cover some of those wires over with more greeblies and a little bit more detailing. But yeah, there was just a lot of threading these lights through. I can't even remember how many lights there are on the thing. I think it probably says 100 on the packet or something like that, but whether it's exactly 100 or not, I don't know. The battery pack I eventually fastened to the bottom of the ship, just with some Velcro, so that I could take it in and out and change the batteries easier. And I had hoped to actually make the lights totally removable should they fail at some point, but I don't think that's going to work. Again, I'm going to have to think about a new way of sorting all these lights out. But there you can see it with the engine on and some of the other lights on in a kind of a low light. And that's the new engine. So a little bit of an upgrade from the last design, hiding some of the yogurt pot details, but I also wanted these to be removable so that I could replace them with some other thing. It's already got an engine at the back anyway, but if I didn't want to add those extra engines on the side, maybe I should be able to add something else. So I wanted to add like a magnetic point on the side. So it's a little bit of a screw through a little bit of plastic, and then some dense foam, EVA foam, and then the magnets are stuck to that, and it seems to hold the weight. I was quite surprised because with the torch inside the engine, it is heavier than you'd imagine, but two of those big chunky magnets on each side of the join seems to work. And actually looking at that as well, it doesn't look bad as a detail on its own. So even if there's nothing placed there, if I go with no engine or no other kind of wing details that might fasten on, it still doesn't look too bad. There you go. Holds on quite nicely. This really just takes us back to where we were at the end of the last video. So adding everything back in, sliding in the telescopic front piece, adding in the antenna array, snap of the magnets, turning on the engines. This is putting the torch into the side engine. It has to be lit when you put it in, because there's no way to access it from outside. Again, something that with more professional lighting I might be able to control everything from outside, but for this experimental thing it'll do. And that's it, with all of its lights and two of its engines. We've still got this one on this side to complete. So next is going to have to continue and finish up these final details, add in the cockpit finally, and get the crew painted maybe, and maybe some more external details. So I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.